What an exciting and amazing time to be able to bring Brevard Public Schools into the Space Coast on a real level. The economic forces are dynamic, they're diverse, they're rooted in space, aviation, technology, high tech, and even tourism. Right now, Brevard is sitting in the 7th position with regard to advanced industry employment opportunities in the United States, eclipsing such cities as Boston, Houston, San Diego. We have so many corporations right here in our own backyard. SpaceX, we have Lockheed Martin, Harris Corporation, NASA, Brevard, Rockwell Collins, you name it, they're here. And what we need to do is shift away from an educational model and hit the business model. Just because we're educators doesn't mean that we're ready to develop skill sets for major industries such as space and aviation. We need them to not only be in the room, but at the same table. And we need to have the conversations about the skill sets that they actually need, and we build it. Now, the relationship between Tallahassee and Brevard Public Schools is absolutely ripe for built-in line item appropriations for building out these industries. Many entities right here in Brevard have already received grants from the governor to build STEM and aerospace programs because they recognize that that pipeline, that talent pipeline, is so powerful. Now, it's my understanding that Brevard has pulled away from Project Lead the Way based on management challenges and funding. Well, I say we reverse that. Let's not pull away, let's fix it. Let's find out what the management problems are and let's deal with it. Let's find funding sources. We have many corporations that are devoted to Project Lead the Way. Florida Space is right for connecting with the education field. They actually hired this year an individual on an executive level to develop workforce development. We also have, in my current district, Lockheed Martin is hiring high school students right out of school because they see the return on investment. Now, as a superintendent, I will put together a superintendent advisory council dedicated to the development, finding the funding sources, and engaging actual workforce content. Brevard Public Schools is right there ready for a technical college system. And there's legislation and laws out there that can get us the money to build a technical college. I've seen it work. I've seen the value of it. Eastern Florida State is doing a great job with their associate degree program. But how many students would benefit from a clock-hour career certification program that gets them into the workforce within a year or less? And we just named the Artemis II team. Artemis 3 is supposed to land on the moon in December of 2025. The question isn't when and how can we get involved. The question is, why aren't we already involved? House Bill 1, in summary, revises provisions for the Florida Empowerment Scholarship Program, the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship Program, part-time enrollment in public schools, transportation, graduation requirements, duties of the Commissioner of Education, and educator certifications. Notably, it expands school choice opportunities equally to all students and families. Past requirements included income-based thresholds to be able to apply for certain school choice opportunities. HB 1 eliminates those thresholds, as well as the enrollment caps at these schools. The spirit of the bill is to increase educational choice and freedom in the state of Florida. The legislation ensures that the money is going to follow the child, minimizes the red tape that normally holds traditional public schools back. For example, this waives the general knowledge requirement for any teacher that's been in the classroom for 3 years and has received effective or highly effective evaluations. It also takes the temporary contract from 3 years to 5 years. All of this can help the state of Florida with the number of shortages that we have with teachers and allow for more opportunities for folks to be able to be successful. Now, with regard to graduation, it's going to remove the virtual course that is a graduation requirement currently as of July 1. This is an equitable adjustment for students who may not have equal access to technology in order to successfully complete that virtual course. Now, concerns raised about the bill include repurposing public education funds to charter and private schools, that may not have the same environment of accountability that the traditional public schools have. But what it all comes down to is choice. There are families that are going to choose to stay and remain in public education. And there are going to be those that leave for the charter and the private schools. But public schools are often the centers of communities. My work with the Rosen Foundation in Central Florida has the school as the central hub. Wraparound services with dental, medical, faith-based organizations and after-school tutoring and just mentoring support for students. We're going to have a lot of folks that want to remain there. But ultimately, House Bill 1 has been signed into law. And that's the bottom line. School choice should be looked at as an opportunity to continue improving the public education system. As superintendent, I will ensure that Brevard Public Schools remain a competitive force in order to attract and retain not just students and families, but a quality staff. By increasing the academic scores through rigorous and relevant curriculum resources, expanding CTE and workforce opportunities, engaging stakeholders in collaborative conversations, working with industries and universities, and showing students the relationships that they can build and have fun, our public schools will be the top choice of our families. To say I'm a kinesthetic learner is an understatement. Matter of fact, when I was in grade school, I was the child that probably drove the teacher out of their mind. I thrived on movement. I required movement. And had I been allowed to stand in the back of the room and pace and do my thing, I probably would have done better in school. We all process differently. I process faster and I process at a deeper level when I'm able to move. And so it's frustrating for folks who are not accustomed to that. Drove my mother crazy all through my formative years. You know, the phones on the wall with the cord. Within a 30-second phone call, I had that cord kinked up and twisted, and it would just drive my mother crazy. And the cordless phone was probably the one invention that probably saved my life. But my reliance on movement has never changed. It's followed me into my adult life. It's followed me into my career. And what I never really processed was what message I was sending in my leadership and communication with all of my movement. Because the perception was that I wasn't interested in what you had to say. I was distracted. I was disengaged with the conversation. And I was emoting that to anybody that was in the room. And it was farther from the truth than anything I could have expressed. The more I move and the more I'm active, the more I'm actually engaged in the conversation. But if that's my perception and not the perception of the folks around me, then it's counterproductive. And so I remember being in a conversation with a gentleman with the search and rescue drone program, and he was like, "Are you agitated? Are you upset?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just really into what you're saying, but my mannerisms sent the wrong message." So I've had to make adjustments in my communication style. I've had to move away from large muscle movement to more tactile, smaller movement that's not as distracting, because it was sending a message of disinterest. And as a leader, just because I can produce at a level that's conducive to that doesn't mean that everybody else in the room does. And I forgot that, or didn't even realize it. And so I needed to make those adjustments and shift to the mindset of jotting things down so I wasn't cutting everybody off. I was always cutting people off. I was so excited and passionate that I was jumping in. I needed to jot my idea down as opposed to just blurting it out. I needed to move and change my muscle movement to smaller, more minute situations. And so if we're going to be a productive organization, I need to recognize that I need to bring people along with my ideas and not drag them because they're my